Hi, my name is David Leverick. How can you get a good score in your IELTS speaking test? The question that a million people want to know. Well, the good news is you just need to focus on what the examiner is looking for. So the examiner has a checklist. And if you do what is on the checklist, then you can get a good score. As simple as that. So you don't need to worry about any other thing, only the checklist. In fact, don't even worry about it. I'm going to show you how to get a good score related to the examiner's checklist for the speaking test. Okay, so sit back and enjoy. It should take about 5 minutes. Here we go. As I said, how can I get a good score in the IELTS speaking test? Well, what is the examiner looking for? So you go into your speaking test room. You see the examiner. The examiner will be sitting at a table and the examiner will have a recorder. The examiner will have a stopwatch. They'll time the speaking test. Also, they'll have a checklist. So let's talk about this checklist. This is the only thing that's important to get a good score. Firstly, fluency. So you don't want to say things like, I think lots of or saying nothing. Now, in the speaking test, that is not good. You will not get a good score for fluency if you say or silence. In real life, that's okay. I come from England. Even people from native speaking countries, we say we are silent sometimes while we're thinking. In the speaking test, please do not say please do not be silent. Instead, you need to use fillers. So I'm going to show you an example soon. Organization. When you give an answer, try to give your opinion. What do you think? Give a reason, because blah 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 blah. Yeah. Example. For example, blah blah blah. Once again, I'll show you an example of giving good organization. The examiner will also be checking your vocabulary and grammar. So what gets you a good score for vocabulary? Well, try to use 2 or 3 idioms. I'll explain what they are. Synonyms. Don't repeat words. Try to think of different ways. For example, say tasty, say delicious, say nice. Don't say nice, nice, it was nice, that was nice, the restaurant was nice. Try to use different vocabulary. Okay. Collocations, words which go together. So, for example, interested in, obsessed with, addicted to. It could be something like keep fit, 2 words which go together. So try to use maybe 2 or 3 collocations as well. Grammar, use different verb tenses. The examiner will be listening to, can you say things in the past? Can you say things in the future? Can you say things in the present? Most students in the exam, they panic. They just use the present simple or the present continuous. So they just say, I go to school at blah, blah, blah. I study every day, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Or present continuous. At the moment, I'm working at blah, 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 blah. No, you will not get a good grammar score if you only use present simple or present continuous. So I'm going to show you an example. Also, try to use 4 or 5 examples of complex sentences. Sentences which are long, so not just short sentences. So, for example, I work in London. I work at a language school. No, you want to say, I work for a language school which is in London. Okay, so you got one sentence with 2 verbs. So words like which, where, who. It could be conditional sentences. For example, you could say, oh, if I won lots of money, I would buy a big house in Hawaii. So once again, 2 verbs or 3 verbs in one sentence. Okay, lastly, pronunciation. Mostly your vowel sounds, so A, E, I, O, U. If you get those incorrect, the examiner cannot understand you clearly. Also, everyone has a difficult sound. Every nationality has a difficult sound. So, for example, with South American students, it could be E and I, they confuse. It could be Asian students saying L instead of R. You get French students saying TH as Z, so like thank you instead of thank you. Okay, so let's have a look at all of these now in an example. So here's a typical question. The examiner will ask you, do you think smartphones are bad for a child's education? Well, firstly, let's have a look at fillers. Let's have a look at fillers. So in green, you can see we've got fillers. So not no, we've got well. That's a tricky one. Tricky means difficult because I can see both points of view, but I would say, okay, so this is instead of saying or saying nothing. You've also got fillers in the middle of a sentence. So, for example, some young learners just aren't interested in a school subject, but if they, no, instead of you say, if they, how can I put it, learn how to play a musical instrument. While you're thinking, try to use fillers. The examiners will be listening for fillers. You get a good score for fluency if you can use fillers. Okay, secondly, remember we have, go back to the examiner's checklist, we've got organisation. So use an opinion, a reason, and an example. So if we go back to this model answer, where's the opinion? Well, here's the opinion. It says, well, I would say these kinds of devices can actually help kids to learn sometimes. So that's my opinion. Give a reason. Because you can watch educational videos on them. Now we need an example. For example, some young learners just aren't interested in a school subject, but if they, how can I put it, learn how to play a musical instrument from a cool YouTube video, they might get up and running. What have we got next on the examiner's checklist? We have vocabulary. So let's look at some idioms, shall we? Well, can you find an idiom in this answer? It's the pink one. So if students learn how to play a musical instrument from a cool YouTube video, they might get up and running. So get up and running is an idiom. So the students, when they watch a YouTube video, they might get up and running. Do they really get up and start running? No. So get up and running has a special meaning. It means get motivation. All right, so get up and running is what we call an idiom. So you need to try and learn these, maybe 2 or 3 idioms in your speaking test. So in future videos, I'm going to teach you some more idioms which are good for your speaking test and also your writing test. Okay, next we have grammar. Well, first of all, we mentioned other points in vocabulary. We said synonyms and collocations. So let's look at those before we move on to grammar. So where are synonyms? Well, in the question, it said child's education. In your answer, you could say kids instead of child's. You could say students instead of child's. Also, instead of smartphones, we've got devices. Okay, so these are examples of synonyms. That will really impress the examiner if you can show off your vocabulary. Don't just repeat. Show the examiner your variety of vocabulary. Okay, and the last point we've got is collocation. So if you remember 2 words which go together, so we've got interested in. You can't say interested at, you can't say interested on, it's always interested in, especially when you have a verb or an adjective plus a preposition. The examiner loves these. They'll be listening for prepositions with a verb or prepositions with an adjective. Okay, good. Now, what about grammar? Right, so we've got, first of all, variety of tenses. So if you get this question, do you think smartphones are bad for a child's education? You could start with the present. You could say, well, actually, I think children can learn by watching YouTube videos sometimes. So that's present sentence. Then you could talk about the past. You could say, but when I was younger, sometimes the lessons were a bit boring because we only learnt from course books. But I think now the future, you could say in the future, I think children will learn using technology and having online lessons more and more. So talk about the future as well. Make sure you practice your verb tenses. Okay, now the last part we mentioned for grammar, we've got complex sentences. So these are the longer sentences with more than one verb. Okay, so here we've got one. We've got if. So if sentences are complex sentences. So if they learn how to play, there's one verb, a musical instrument from a cool YouTube video, they might get up. So there's your second verb. So the examiner will be noticing your complex sentences just 4 or 5 times in the complete test. Okay, lastly, we've got pronunciation. So we've got vowel sounds. So vowel sounds are what we call A, E, I, O, U. They could be short, A, I, yeah, E, O, U. So you need to make these good or clear before your speaking test. So I'm going to give you a lesson on YouTube on pronunciation, including these vowel sounds, but also these difficult sounds as well. So as I mentioned, each country, each nationality has their own problem. So as I said, some in Japan, for example, in France, sometimes people say that instead of that. So you've got to put your tongue between your teeth. Yeah, so these are common problems. In Germany, you've got people saying w instead of v or v instead of w. So for example, we've got very instead of very. So the examiner will be checking your pronunciation and they will give you a score for pronunciation. Okay. So I hope now you know the examiner's checklist. I hope now it's a bit easier for you and it gives you more motivation to study to get a good score in your speaking test. So my name's David Leverick. Please subscribe and follow me, and I'll put on more videos in the near future. Goodbye.